I don't know about you, but I find it pretty weird how every tutorial out there still peddles the same misinformation, like how every punk song only uses power chords. There's so many subtleties that people miss even in the most straightforward songs, like Johnny Ramone's inverted bar chord technique, or how numerous bands will bury an octave guitar down the centre of the mix. So in this video, instead of repeating those same tired points, I'll be showing you techniques bands actually use to write awesome songs with. Let's start with the most annoyingly repeated line in almost every lesson you'll see, which is that all you need to know is power chords for punk and punk adjacent music. Sure, this is a very common chord, but even the most simplistic bands like Ramones weren't solely using power chords. And in their case, they didn't even really use power chords at all if you actually listen to the recordings properly. For instance, in Blitzkrieg Bop, they're actually using bar chords with an inversion on top of that. I'll play the guitar stems for you here, and if you listen closely, you'll hear both the D and E chords have that distinctive sound you can only get from inverting a power chord, along with hearing the major third of each chord too. Bands and artists use a ton of other chord types outside of your standard power chords too. For instance, take a listen to acts like Say Anything, Jeff Rosenstock or Heart Attack Man, and you'll rarely hear only power chords being used throughout their songs. A lot of bands will take this idea one step further by layering more simplistic sounds like power chords over more unique and interesting voicings. For instance, Pup is a great example of this, with how Stefan will play more standard bar chord sounds on one side, while Steve plays more complex jazzy voicings of those same chords on the other side. And then you also had the lead octave trick that is often used. Rise Against is a great example of doing this. If you listen to any track off of their album The Black Market, you'll hear this all throughout the record. It's normally used to either mimic the vocal melody or just to add some harmonic colour to the chords that are panned out towards the side of the mix. It doesn't have to be exclusively octaves either, though it tends to be more simplistic sounds like octaves or single note riffs, as these are often placed in the centre of the mix and you don't want to detract from the lead vocal melody. Harmony is also a massively overlooked part of punk guitar playing. A lot of your favourite riffs will actually have harmonies or counter melodies placed underneath what you're probably hearing as a single sound. So if you ever write your own riff and feel like things sound kind of empty, this is probably the reason why. One of my favourite examples of this is during the guitar solo in If You Don't Don't by Jimmy Eat World. For ages I couldn't ever figure out what exactly they were doing to make something that sounded so simple also sound so catchy, until I realised that it wasn't just a single octave guitar playing, but in fact it was actually this cool stacked harmony sound, which was two guitars playing individual octave parts that when played together create a super catchy melodic guitar lead. I'll play each one isolated for you and then I'll stack them together like they do in the recording. So how do you go about finding and learning all this stuff yourself? Well, one thing I highly recommend doing is to take some of your favourite tracks and try to recreate every tiny detail you can. It's a really great method for helping train your ear to hear all the small details you'll often overlook when listening casually, and it will also improve your arrangement skills as you try to figure out not only what they're playing, but also how things are recorded and then arranged. And for a quick overview of essential chords you need to improve your punk guitar skills, watch this video next.